believed in CJ all year. Are you worried?
Yeah, I'm worried.
Coach is worried about everybody today.
Look, I made a mistake. I made it. I have to take full accountability.
I feel so
for
sick
doing
for Coach
something
on this.
so uncharacteristic.
He did.
And choosing a second-year quarterback. And sitting next to Nick for all these years, I think has unfortunately wore me down enough to jump on the bandwagon way too early, especially at the quarterback position.
MVP, Super Bowl, whole thing.
Yeah, it's way too much.
Did the whole thing.
Way too much. And I imagine what CJ's going through right now is he had all the success last year. He comes in with the expectations. And then when you have those expectations, you get to that point where you start pressing, a little bit like Jalen Hurts after he got his contract. And when you're pressing, nothing good ever comes from that. And I think that the most important thing he can do is, instead of keep digging, take a little bit of a step back, try to do maybe do a little bit less instead of trying to constantly doing more, which is only leading to more mistakes and less productivity.
So he's obviously having a down year. Are you now questioning whether he'll be like a star, for his career?
No, I think what happens is you have that success, you come out of the blue and have it, and then everybody studies you, everybody figures out what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and you've got to do all the same things you did the year before, better than you did, and then you also got to develop your weaknesses, because your weaknesses are on tape and everybody's giving you huge doses of what you do poorly.
Here's, Nick, this is what I thought, because I understand that CJ seemed really hard on himself, and I don't think he wants to say this, but so I'll say it. Highest pressure percentage faced this season. Will Levis is number 1, CJ number 2, Deshaun and Drake May. Oh, my goodness. Shout out to Drake May, having a great year. So for me, this is just it. I don't see a sophomore slump.
Wasn't great.
That's the problem. Yeah. The problem is last year the offensive line might have been more banged up.
Right.
This year it's marginally worse, but last year it was a problem, and he was great. The other problem is this. It's Nico Collins is now back, and if we can show first 6 versus last 6, it's not like the offensive line got way worse. You know what I mean? In mid-October, his last 6 games, he's been brutal. And I don't know how closely people were watching Texans-Titans, but, I had the Titans +8 and Nick's picks, another winning week in America. This was a game that no one loses. When you're the opening kickoff, the Texans went 80 yards, scored a touchdown on the next play. So they basically got a kick return touchdown. Levis went, as Brew texted, full Levis on a pick 6, and the Titans muffed a punt to give the Texans a super short field, 17 free points. Now, I understand Fairbairn missed a 26-yarder, which was absurd, but this was a worse loss than the score indicates. And so I think that we are in a situation where, of the 14 teams that make the playoffs, the Texans are going to be the easiest out. They're not going to not win that division. And we were talking about
NFC South could be an easy out.
Maybe.
Tampa would be
Tampa.
If they get there.
Defensively, don't forget though, they are number 1 in takeaways and they are number 2 in sacks. So you can still go a long way if the defense.
The sacks I believe in being more sustainable over the course of the year than the.
Okay, well, let's talk about this. First off, it's not really fair to put this all on CJ Stroud. I mean, you want to talk about mistakes or issues, the CJ Stroud has to do less. Yeah. They had 40 yards rushing. 18 of those yards came from CJ Stroud himself. Mixon got 1.6 yards per carry. I don't understand. You don't have the run game going. CJ Stroud is running for his life. They had 11 penalties. 11 penalties. You're missing 28 8-yard field goals. I mean, this is a fundamental team problem. This is a coaching problem. This is an X and O's culture, game prep. I mean, there are many issues here. So I don't see why it needs to be a hyper focus on CJ Stroud, honestly. I understand CJ Stroud could be playing better. I do agree with that. I'm not disputing that. But considering what he's been dealing with It's his second year, awful O-line, inconsistent run game, either because of injuries or just because having just feeling like this team is ill prepared. I mean, because that's the thing. You can watch this game. You can watch lots of the Texans games, and they feel like they're not prepared. I've been saying this for weeks now. Oh, the Texans won that game, but things were a little sloppy, or this game was too hard than it should have been. I want to see a cleaner game, whatever it may be. And this is what they've been doing all season, which is why I blame coaching, honestly, more than even just personnel, because it just feels like they're just not ready for the moment, ready for the game, ready for the situation. I think their record's misleading, honestly. I think their record should probably technically even be worse. And I had way high expectations on the Houston Texans. Way high expectations. I had them as a top contender. And I understand some injuries derailed that a bit. But I question coaching, and it's not to say that I think like, oh, okay, you know, D'Amico, fire him, Bobby Slowick, move on. I'm not going that far. But I just think it's fair to have like legitimate questions about this operation as a whole right now. Because it is. It's a mess. And we know you got to get your O-line going here. You got to give your quarterback time, especially a second-year quarterback here. It's been a lot, and he's been facing all that pressure with inconsistent weapons again, whether because of injuries or not. I don't think that Bobby Slowick has done a good enough job to taking care of him, and you can see. I mean, CJ Stroud's making some unbelievable throws. You know, the touchdown pass to Nico, and then the pass to close out the half also to Nico. I mean, the game is there. The game is there, but you're constantly putting this guy's back up against the wall, and I just don't know how you're expected to be able to overcome all of these issues. I don't understand. I don't know any quarterback, who's going to be, I understand there was definitely some gifts from the Titans, no question about it. So I get what Nick was saying, but I don't know what quarterback or what team is going to be able to overcome when you're missing 28-yard field goals, 11 penalties, and your run game only has 40 yards rushing. I don't know where they had 0 rushing first downs. 0. That's wild. Not a single handoff led to a first down. That's insane. I don't care what quarterback you are. I don't care what team you are. You're not going to win. You're not going to look good. So this team needs to course correct and self-diagnose like ASAP. Because also injuries at this point are not an excuse for that. There's no excuse for that. To not have a single rushing first down. To have 40 yards, to average 1.8 yards per carry. Or 1.6 yards per carry, excuse me. That's indefensible. That truly is indefensible. So I'd love to hear from Texans fans, people who are more locked into this team. You know, I've watched all these games, and I keep trying to explain away some of their issues, but their issues remain. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Like, what do you think exactly is going on? Where do you think the problem is? I know a lot of people were blaming Bobby Slowick before. I defended him. I still think he's worthy of being defended, but I'm just like, outside of that, I'm just curious, where else do you see these problems? I just don't see it as CJ Stroud just being the guy who they're just like, oh, they would be a better team if CJ Stroud played better. Like, I just don't think that's fair. And I know Mixon has played well for them as well, but it's still like the fact that they can have a game unfold like this is just quite bizarre, honestly. Quite bizarre. This was definitely a tough loss, and it's hard to find the excuses for this game. Honestly, there really is. I can excuse an individual player here and there, but it's hard when I look at this from a more team perspective, where I can find the excuses of how something like this can unfold. And if this was just one of those games then I would say, oh, it was just one of those games. It happens. But they've had too many of just one of those games. So that's why you can't just explain this away. You just can't say, oh, this was a tough game, tough matchup, this, that, and the third. Like that I'll reject, honestly. So curious what everyone's thoughts are. What do you think is going on with the Texans? Where do you think the blame falls? What do you think needs to be done? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.